We are live. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm Rob Calvarowski, and as always, the yang to my yin or yin to my yang, however it goes.
We keep
Susan
forgetting.
Hobson's here. Susan, how are you?
I am excellent. I'm fired up about this interview. So let's go. Let's get this party started, shall we?
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously, we have to start off with a quote.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I have one here from Leon Brown. And he says, the more you try to control something, the more it controls you. Free yourself and let things take their natural course.
Ooh, I love that one. Tell us why you picked that one today.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why today? It's
Yeah.
always, things are always in my mind, but it's something that I was working on both internally and also with some of my clients was this element of like needing to know more, faster, be there. Right. And it's very much this element of your managers and your firefighters controlling. And once you can allow them to step aside, that's when true self, and as Tony and Dick talked about, right? It's like you can then grow. And so that's where I wanted to go. Obviously, we have a special guest today. Hortense Le Gentil is here with us. She's a world-renowned executive leadership coach. She's the author of Aligned: Connecting Your True Self with the Leader You're Meant to Be, and her book that's just coming out. You can see it in the background if you're watching it on YouTube. The Unlocked Leader: Dare to Free Your Own Voice, Lead with Empathy, and Shine Your Light into the World. Hortense, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me, Rob and Susan. I'm just, delighted to be here. And just one thing, the book, it's only the advanced reading copy, unfortunately. So the book will be released on September 26th, just for our audience to not be, frustrated if they don't get the book right now. But thank you.
Absolutely. And folks will be listening to this hopefully in August. So you only have a little bit of time to wait. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about it. You're an executive leadership coach. Also, you're part of the Marshall Goldsmith MG 100 coaches. Now, Hortense, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, how did you arrive where you are today as, this amazing leadership coach?
So I took the scenic roads, I can tell you. It took me a long time because it's a journey. I think it's a journey. So I began, I think I began my life when in France. So I was raised and born in France. I'm sure you're surprised. I don't have any accent, but
yeah.
But this is who I am. And my first life was with horses. So I grew up in the middle of horses. And I was also a competitor, an equestrian show jumper. And so it was my first passion. I learned a lot from that. And my second passion was US. So I went to school both in Paris and in Boston at Northeastern University, and I graduated from marketing graduate. Came back to France and to Paris at that time, and I worked for a decade with large corporates in the corporation in the corporate arena, let's say, with advertising agencies and media. So for a decade, I also got married at that time. I had two wonderful children, a boy and a girl. And so I was in Paris at that time until one moment in my life where I felt completely disaligned. And so some people can say that it's a middle life crisis. It's not. It was not really that. And it was hard for me to admit it. So when you don't, you know that you should do something, but you don't do it. What's happened?
Regret.
No, more than regret. I got sick. I got sick.
Oh.
Because your body, your mind is so strong that your body is here to give you some, information that you don't want to listen to or to see or to hear. So this is what happened to me. So, I I was in bed for quite some months. And so I had time to reflect. And I told myself, okay, so I have to move. So one day after, of course, thinking about it, and I took the decision, hard decision, but to leave my marriage and to move forward and to change completely. Wow. So I decided to rewrite my story from scratch. So with my 2 children, and I quit my job. And because I wanted to be an entrepreneur, when I was young, this is what I wanted, because I like to innovate, because I like to do my way, because, it gives me energy, in fact, to create and to go with people to do things. So I became an entrepreneur for a decade. So in a male world industry, because it was recycling steel industry. But it was great. I learned a lot. Oh, it was hard also. I had, of course, my hard time, but it was okay. I learned a lot. And you can imagine that when you go through difficult time, you're looking for answers because you feel there's not the right way to go for you, at least. And, but you don't know where to begin, right? So I searched for answers. I learned a lot about neuroscience, about spirituality. I think this is when and where I discovered spirituality, who helped me a lot. And of course, everything about psychology, because I've always been passionate by people. Always. I was that kind of girl who can be in a cafe in Paris and just spend hours just looking at people. I just love that. So, okay, but I did that for myself, not for a job. So we were there after 3 decades of large corporate and entrepreneurial. And one day I felt like, okay, being an entrepreneur is fine, it's funny, but it was not that funny anymore because, in fact, I created it, so it was on. And I thought, there is something different. I think there is something else for me. And back to it was a reading, it's a book that I read, but before that, this book is the autobiography of a yogi. And it changed my life. So I really found spirituality at that time. And if I go back to that moment, I told myself also, oh, maybe also I have a mission in life. But what is my mission? I didn't know. And but what I knew was, so I reflect and say, what do you like to do? What gives you joy? What you want to do? I didn't know exactly. And at that moment, a friend of mine told me, Hortense, I have a friend who is an entrepreneur and he would love to have your help. You can help him because I know that. And he told me, and by the way, because you just love and you're doing well in helping people. And he told me, and by the way, you should be a coach. And I said, are you crazy? A coach? What is that? A coach? No. I am an entrepreneur. I have my, whatever. But I told him, but yes, I'm going to help you. Your friend, of course, you don't say no. And I was delighted and honored that, he was asking me that. So, but he, it's put me some little pieces of something like a sand, in my brain. So I said, okay, so let's try to see how it looks like if I do that. So I took my hat, my new hat of, imagine I am a coach, what I'm going to do. And in fact, I went to see his friend. And after 1 hour conversation, it was amazing. I felt like, the energy between this person and me. And I felt like, I don't know, it's difficult to explain, but everything made sense at that moment. And it was like, a puzzle. And all the pieces of the puzzles just led you here you are now. So just these pieces you have all the pieces of the puzzle and you have the big picture. And at one point, you just understand, gosh, everything for that. Because this is why I had a very long journey, because I had to learn so much, but so much. And now I understood at that moment that what I learned, I could share with people, and what I learned could help people. And I felt it was right. I felt my soul and my heart and even my energy and everything at the right place. So, long story.
I want you to help our audience understand in the context of that story. When you say you found spirituality, what that meant and what that means to you.
Okay, so back at that time, but I cannot remember exactly when, but when I read, this book, autobiography of an. So how I read this book is because I heard or read, I think I read an article about Steve Jobs, who had only, one book, reading one book. And I said, oh, interesting. What is this book about? And because I'm very curious, I bought the book. And the book at that time I was surprised, but I found it very, very easily. And it was in French. I could read it in French. So I bought the book and I read the book. And when I read the book, I understood that something exists somewhere that I didn't know. And because I am Catholic, so I was, I know religion, but for me, religion put you in a space, in a box, and I don't like that too much. Don't ask me to enter a box because I'm like a horse and it doesn't work. So, but spirituality is open, because this is what I always thought. Something exists. But doesn't matter if you called, it Krishna or Jesus or whatever, doesn't matter. We're talking the same language. And here, with the spirituality, this is what I understood. And it was his story, by the way. So story of Uganda, I'm sure you know. But and okay, so I learned at that moment. I said, oh, it touched me. He said, okay, this is what I thought. And this guy, thinks the same thing. Okay, good beginning. And after, somewhere, he has, his story is amazing. And he came after, he was raised to come to here in New York, found in New York, I guess, at the beginning. But anyway, in US, to teach American this spirituality. So it was so well done, so unbelievable. So I learned that there is something different than religion. I learned that I could I could learn differently also, because by meditation and things like that. And I learned also that maybe also I could have a mission. So it was not very clear, but this is something that touched me. So I was back in Paris at that time. And so I decided to look for a yogi master in Paris. How easy it is, right? We are not in India and we're not in US, in Paris. So, but I found him. Took me a little time, but I found Krishna. His name is Krishna. And he taught me everything. From the beginning, he taught me everything, gave me a book that I have here in 2 languages. And my journey, my spiritual journey began. And how it helped me? I think I began another person. Meditating, trying to, have a step back, looking at things differently. It opened a lot of doors in who I am that I was absolutely not expected to open. Didn't know even that it was, it exists before in myself, in who I am. And and I continue to learn and to practice, and I meditate a lot, and I try to learn every day about, I'm very curious, so I always want to learn about everything, but also I continue my journey in spirituality also.
So how do you bring that, like, obviously you're in New York City and it's crazy and everyone's trying to make more money or do all the things, the high pressure. How do you bring
things,
that element of self and spirituality to folks who are, just really buttoned up and really not open necessarily to those types of ideas?
It will be, I think you will be surprised to see that people are much more open than you think. And I am not a spiritual leader who are here to lead your spirituality. I use for myself, and I discover some things, but I adapt to everybody. So, for example, if we talk about meditation, if I think that you're open to that, I say, okay, well, meditation helped me. Maybe you could try to meditate. Often it's complicated for people. So I said, okay, do something very easy. Be at the present moment. This is what meditation is about, is be at the present moment. And I give some, tricks to be at the present moment. This is my way of sharing what I think it's important with people who want, that I meet and want to be helped or want to learn about me or what I'm doing. And I think that if they don't want, I have so much work to do. It's fine. I force nobody to do it. So, but very curiously, people, you attract who you are. And I'm in Paris two or three times, because Paris is worst. But Paris 3 or 3 times, maybe, people who didn't understand absolutely that kind of things, we didn't agree to work together for sure. But here, and most of the time, in fact, people, comes, or I meet people, it's unbelievable, with who, okay, let's start. And I think this is all about, attracting what is the people that I can help, and not the people that I cannot help. If I cannot help, I cannot help.
Let me switch gears here for us a second and ask, I want to dig into this book of yours that's coming out here any minute in September, The Unlocked Leader. What does that mean to be an unlocked leader, Hortense? Take us there now, will you?
Yes, of course. Thank you for asking me. I think the answer is very simple. It's being this human leader that we need today. So this is being writing your own story and being empathetic, leading with empathy. And it's also about care about people and inspire. I think this is what an unlock leader is.
And it refers to those leaders that have done the work, those leaders that are on missions themselves. Let's go a little bit deeper in terms of that aspect.
I think, nobody were until now, no, I never see in any education or school anybody, go to take any. It's changing a little, huh? But until now, let's say nobody told us that a leader should not be a hero, should not be show up like having all the answer. Nobody told us that emotions belong to the corporate arena.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody told. No, we were raised and said the reverse.
Mm-hmm.
No. Close the door of your emotion. No. Never show your emotion. Never do something. So the world is completely transitioning. People are transitioning. Our new and young generation are not the same. And so for leaders who are maybe 40 or more, 40, 50, 60, maybe more sometimes, it's hard. It's hard because you need a lot of courage to review that and to, let's see how we can do, and let's see if we can do it, and let's see if we want to do it, by the way. So this is it, I think.
Kind of goes right back to the top of the show where we had that quote, right, about surrendering, right? Hey, Rob, you see it? Literally what you were talking about in that quote, isn't it? Surrendering control.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the changing of the world and the new generation. And I guess, Hortense, for you, like some of those older leaders, like where do you start? Like, let's say someone's out there, they're listening, they're like, I like this concept, I like this idea. Where would I start?
I think stop. This is where you start. You start. You start to stop. You stop. And you reflect. You take this time to feel, to reflect, and to say, okay, where I am today, and what I want to do, and why. And so, beginning here, I think it's very, very important to take the time to reflect. And the second step, if you want the second step, is to face your fears. We all have fears. This is normal. This is part of human being. But being aware of it and just facing him and make peace with your fears, it's the first step. First step to unlock yourself.
Okay, so where do we go after we unlock the fear?
And so after, you listen to your voices. Because we all, have voices inside of us, and we tell ourselves, no, yes, no, you should not, you don't want. So just clear the noise of your own voices and the voices outside of yourself. And try to talk true, to talk, what do you want to say? Who do you want to be? Who are you? And stop hearing and asking, outside. You have all the answer. So go back to yourself and find those voices. And you will find a voice that doesn't belong to you, but that voice is holding you back to who you want to be. And this is mind trap. So find your mind traps. the first, after you have a process, but find the mind traps. Whose voice is it?
Many of those voices.
Right? It's not that easy. You have a lot of work to do, but that's true.
And it's actually something, so for folks out there, one of, I suppose, my colleagues / friends, Dave Lovass, I had a session with him yesterday, and we were talking about a similar thing. Is like, obviously, I'm leaving in a few days to go to a TEDx event, and there has been a lot of that manager part running full steam. And there is a part of it, right, which is when I first started this work where rest was impossible and actually dangerous. And yesterday I figured out why. But for folks out there, as you pause and take that break, it can feel extremely uncomfortable to a level that feels unsafe. Now, if that's the case, go to therapy. Okay? Because that's for professional help, right? But it's also just having the awareness that there is something that's going to make this feel uncomfortable that all of us had, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
I still have, and I'm sure both of you still have it.
Me too.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just normal. And so that's part of the journey, is learning to work with it, and then we can come together.
Exactly, Rob. I just love the way you put that, because this is exactly that. Again, this is normal to feel fears, and so I don't think we just make peace with fears. And I go back to your quote. Very often, when we think about it, we are running everywhere just to not face ourselves, right? And why we don't want to face ourselves? Because we know exactly, why. We know that we don't want to hear our voice. So, and that's normal. So think about which voices, and let go, like you said. So let go. Stop trying to control, like you said before, everything, because trying to be in control, it's also insecurity. If you are secure, you don't have to prove anything to anybody. It's inside yourself. It's you. So do it that way. Be secure in yourself. So this is really what is leadership about. This is really being you, having this, securities, these visions, is okay. Accept that. And so your power is going to increase, because you're not going to fight against something else. Can you imagine, the time that we spend fighting against another voice, another thing, hiding? Gosh, no. The world needs you as you are, your talent, because we are unique. And so, it's all about that, about letting go and move and rebuild, because after you have to change your mindset, of course.
And letting your state lead the way. I gotta take a guess here.
Okay.
In saying that your time with horses that you mentioned at the top of the show here probably has lent itself to some of this wisdom that you carry, right? In terms of this aspect that you're describing here, which is the model carries the most weight. That's the number one rule in new school leadership, right? Is the model carries the most weight. So what did your time on those horses teach you, right? Like you obviously, you had to stay calm. You had to be really present. You had to be really authentic and sincere, right? I mean, I don't know a lot about riding horses. That was not my sport. I was a hockey player, but just
nice.
from a point of observation, I feel like you can see some of that in that sport. But what did that inspire that time?
You're absolutely right. So at that moment, I didn't, of course, it's now taking a step back that I understand, but I think I learned everything about that. I think that this is the only sport where we are two beings. So it's completely different that, a team or something like that. It could be a team, but it's two beings. And one is not talking. So that's not that easy. And so what I learned, I think the first thing is empathy. Feel your horse. Understand your horse. Watch your horse. Communicate with your horse. Another point, how to communicate. You can communicate. You can communicate with words, but you have plenty others, way to communicate with a horse. Same with a human being. Same with people. Your body language, your heart, your just your eyes, whatever it is. So I think I learned also that, and also I learned to communicate correctly. My dad always, told me that all the time, and my coach. My dad was also my coach also, so I had two coaches. And if you're not clear where you want to go, your horse is not going to follow you. If you don't know if you go right or left, your horse is going to say, okay, so I do my way. And your horse is going to go where he wants. So having clear vision, where do I want to go? And communicate correctly. This is all about leadership, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so and empathy. So we talk about that, but this is the main points. We have a lot. I can speak for hours about that, but failure also. You know that, I don't know if you know that, but one said that you have to fail 100 times before becoming a good rider. See? So each time you fail, you say, yeah, one more. Maybe one day I will be a good rider.
That's
So
a
it's a
lot of
good
trips to
lesson.
the hospital.
You try to avoid the hospital as possible. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, so I learned a lot about that. It's all about leadership, really, because leadership is about being human again, and it's about communicate and everything about that.
If there's anything you could tell our community of leaders out there, what would it be?
Be yourself. Really, be yourself, because you are unique. You have your own DNA. So be yourself, because the world needs you as you are, or for who you are, not for what your environment wants you to be or to. Yeah.
And what do you want the legacy of all of this unlocking leaders, right? Work that you're doing in the world to be someday?
The unlocking leaders, not my legacy.
What do you want the legacy of that work to be?
Other work, my work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think I want to be remembered as someone who made a difference in people's life by helping them uncover and liberate who they really are. And this is the legacy that I would like to to people understand and to think, when I will not be here anymore.
Love it.
Amazing. So folks out there, so first off, you can get 2 books. The one that's out right now, Aligned, Connecting Your True Self with the Leader You're Meant to Be. And then in September, the upcoming book, The Unlocked Leader, is coming out. You can check out Hortense's website, hortenselegentil.com. I dropped that in the podcast notes. Also, her LinkedIn's in the podcast notes as well. Is there anywhere else you want folks to find you?
No, I think I'm in Instagram a little, but mostly there. And maybe, if you want to pre-order the book is, open to pre-order on Amazon right now. That would be wonderful. You can find me there also. And that's all.
Perfect. Amazing. So check that out. We'll drop that in the podcast notes as well. Obviously for us, hit subscribe to Leadership Launchpad Project on your favorite podcast platform. And if you like this interview, send it to other leaders in your life. I mean, I just have to say, Susan, we've done now, it's like about 130 episodes or so, and we've kept coming back to the same things, right? Be yourself. And that's the ticket. So I don't even know if we have to continue anymore.
Mic drop. Yeah, seriously. Well, I think it should be that there are common themes, right, to this work. So I think that makes sense that all of this is sort of connecting on certain underlying themes that we're seeing in our guests. So thank you, Hortense, for coming in here with one of our favorite themes, being yourself. You can't beat that play, right, Rob? That is the strongest play in the playbook.
Absolutely. Obviously, folks, if you're looking for leadership development, one-on-one coaching, and more, head on over to elitehighperformance.com. And I think where we started is good. It's the journey is a journey, and you can't force it, and you can't jam it in, and you can't control it. Believe me, I tried.
You've tried. And many others too.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
Once you allow, it will happen.
Yeah, it's trusting that really is the universal test there, right? Being able to step back and surrender, that's a massive trust exercise, right? In terms of trusting that who you are is going to be enough for whatever that moment requires. So that's where the journey begins. No matter where you are today listening, get on that journey and just start doing that work, because please believe that is definitely where the magic happens. And it is such a hard thing to believe just sitting here listening to this podcast. So that's why we want this final call for all of you listening today to get out there on the road, let the rubber meet the road, and let's start practicing surrendering control and seeing what happens in ourselves and in our teams with our people when we actually surrender control. It's a beautiful thing.
I cannot agree more. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I cannot agree more. So thank you for having me, because it's a very wonderful conversation. And when you yourself, it's your inside guide. So it's your true north. So you always come back to yourself. And that's true that magic happens when you let go and when you accept that. And that's true that at the beginning, it's hard to understand and to admit, but that's true. And and the more people are going to do that, and I think, the more the world is going to be great, because, everything begins here. And this is, in the new book, The Unlocked Leader, this is because we talk a lot about, the why, but not the how. And this is a process of unlocking that you will find in it.
Yeah, that's why we like to say on this show, we like to reinforce the message that it's not an intellectual exercise. I know we talk about, we're mindset experts, all three of us sitting here, but this is not an intellectual exercise solely, right? Like, we have to let the rubber meet the road in real time in order for us to experience that real-time integration. So Just trust us folk here sitting on the mic today, and let that be enough to at least guide you in getting that aspect of the journey started.
Exactly.
Alrighty, folks, and I'm sure it sounds scary, but that's your protectors coming in. So lean in there because there's a lot of intel to be had.
Oh, yeah.
But everyone, thank you so much for listening. Hortense, it was incredible to have you on. And when the book comes out, we'd love to have you back on to talk more about it. Susan, thank you as always. And we'll see you all next week.
Thank you, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. Thank you very much, both of you.